Georgian Dream can be openly anti-Europe and still win elections. However, here's why their greatest blunder was actually going against the United States and going against NGOs from the United States. Hello and welcome back to the Traveling Reports. Today we're going over Georgia's pro-US sentiment and why it is ingrained in national ideation and why the US will likely never be seen as entirely a bad thing here in Georgia. Now, to preface this, Georgia is one of the most pro-United States countries in the world. And this is verifies a lot within studies, within the fact that people go out and ask, right? And unlike a lot of the former Soviet countries, Georgia does not see any real downside to a partnership with the United States. And so, realistically, what happens in a lot of cases is Georgia is very pro-United States, but often frays away from the directives of the EU and from the European Union more generally. And this has a lot to do with the United States model of strategic autonomy and strategic stability within nationalist settings. Of course, I will get into that more broadly and the US dynamics regarding strategic autonomy of countries, which I think is a really interesting topic to go over here in the near future. However, that's a whole nother video. And of course, if you're looking forward to that video, feel free to subscribe because I bring high-value content on these geopolitical issues, as well as internationalization, international business, and the changing world order. So if you're interested in that, I would appreciate as well a like on this video. We're going for around 1,000 subscribers by November. And if you can help us reach that goal, would be very appreciative. That said, of course, in this changing landscape of Georgia becoming what is realistically a very pro-US but weaning away from the EU country, so pro-US, pro-West more generally, but not the idealisms of the West, but the idealisms of the United States. What you get is a very unique situation where Georgians are very pro-US, and it has to do with the history. And I think that realistically, to start, we have to go back to 2004, the year the Rose Revolution happens. At that time, Shevardnadze, I think is his name. I'll put it up on the screen. I forget his name off the top of my head, but the person that came after Gamsu Khadia was elected leader in the 90s, and he stayed in power largely off and on until 2004. What happens in 2004 is people during that period were fed up with the Soviet-style bureaucracy, with people being subjected to what was realistically the Soviet-era policies of the Shevardnadze regime. And so, what you get is Mikhail Saakashvili leading peaceful protests in the capital of Tbilisi. And so, if you look at the timeline and the events that transpired, it was a large inflow of Western institutions. But predominantly, the only Western institutions that were trusted were American. Why were American institutions trusted? Well, because they really didn't come with the idea that you had to believe in what the US believed in. And You could keep your religion, you could keep, how you lived. The only thing the US typically wants, and again, I'll put this in another video on a more in-depth look, but the only thing that the US really wants is dollar and trade consistency, or neutrality in trade, which realistically, I wouldn't say neutrality in trade so much as pro-American trade stability. So in the US, what happened was they saw a great opportunity to use Georgia as a bastion of what fast integration could look like. And of course, Mikhail Saakashvili went to Colombia, and he was the poster child of American ideation. And from 2004 to 2012, Georgia was growing at a rate, year over year, of almost double digits every single year. And so these reforms, which many of them still exist today, as they cannot be overturned without a supermajority in the parliament, many of these reforms made Georgia extremely wealthy by 90s standards, even by 2000s standards, because there was such rapid growth. And I'll show you the GDP graph of Georgia. You saw meaningful change in these 8 years. And even after these 8 years, when the Georgian Dream came to power, it wasn't the Georgian government that was associated with this change. It wasn't the Georgian government who was associated with the large economic successes that Georgia was seeing. It was the United States. And additionally, until recently, and the Foreign Agents Law realistically made this happen, there was 80% of healthcare spending being provided by the United States. 80%. And so there's an irrevocable bond, so to speak, especially in Georgia, where you do get people who are very pro-US, who will often not say anything against the United States. And it's due to the clan culture as well, which, of course, I will get deeper into the clan dynamics in another video. Of course, if you're looking forward to all of those videos, I would appreciate you giving a quick subscription. It helps a lot, and we look to provide you the best information we can. If you liked this video, feel free to like it. If you really liked this video, feel free to share it with your friends. If you're looking for one-on-one consulting on how to navigate Georgia or how to navigate other countries, feel free to reach out. There's a Calendly link down in the description below. And without further ado, this has been the Traveling Report, signing off.